Welcome, everyone. We are today exploring day two of the module that we started last week, which was about decision making. So, today we'll be talking about the filters through which we could be running our life, filters of approval, comparison, control, safety, but also growth. So, so we've seen, that last time when we were speaking that we often end up looking at life from the lens of what will others think. So I don't see life as it is. I'm seeing life through filters. And that's today, our goal is to become aware of that. Because every decision, it's almost like it's passing through a lens. And if we can find out, or if we can explore which lens am I using right now? So then we move from unconscious decision making to more conscious, more aware decision making. And we've seen this, we've seen that if there are two people who are offered the exact same opportunity, one could look at the opportunity, the possibility in it, can look at it positively. The other could see danger or uncertainty. One person could feel excited, the other person could feel anxious. And it's the same opportunity, but just different responses. And this happens because usually we are not really very objective about reality. We are reacting to reality. So, what is happening is that we are assigning some meaning to whatever is in front of us. And therefore, how we look at something will depend on the meaning that we have given it rather than what it is objectively. So, we would have noticed that two people can experience the exact same situation very differently. And today, through our practice and through what we speak, we learn, we're going to explore these invisible filters through which we could be viewing life. And uh, and that tells us it's almost certain that we are not making decisions based on facts. um, we're making decisions based on filters. So yeah, the practice is about seeing clearly, it's about awareness. And before we get on to the theory of it, we'll just maybe take a few minutes to sit comfortably, close our eyes, and take a few minutes to really arrive into the session with our presence, relaxing the body, and if you can, become aware of sounds around you. You could notice distant sounds, nearby sounds, subtle sounds, while trying to stay away from labels or analyzing these sounds. We're simply noticing. And to stay away from any judgment about these sounds, any meaning. Also, trying to stay away from attaching ourselves to any one sound. So, moving our attention from one sound to the next dispassionately. If you find yourself getting distracted, then bringing yourself back to either your breath or to another sound that you hear. You could even come really close and listen to the sound of your own heartbeat or the sound of your breath. And now become aware of thoughts, thoughts running inside your head, not the content. Just notice thoughts appearing, thoughts disappearing. If you can look at thoughts maybe as clouds passing by through a sky, thoughts passing through your mind without attaching yourself to any one thought. And these thoughts, as they appear, also disappearing. And the question to ask also is, can I observe without immediately judging? And it's something to reflect about how quickly the mind moves from observing something to interpreting it. And our intention for today, for our time together, is to want to see more clearly. See more clearly myself, my reality, my environment, other people, decisions, situations, life. Today, I want to see more clearly. And with that, bringing your attention to your body, the space that you're in, your body making contact with the surface you're on. And you can stretch yourself, really make yourself comfortable. And then opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. So, um, yeah, thanks for that practice. Now, since we're talking about filters and we're talking about hidden filters, what really is a filter? Now, in this context, a filter is a habitual way of interpreting life. So, a filter then is not reality, it's a lens. And the danger becomes that after a while, we stop seeing the lens for what it is and we start thinking that the lens is reality. Now, imagine if you're wearing, say, blue tinted glasses for years. Now, after a while, we'll stop noticing the glasses. We'll start simply believing that the world is blue. And this is what also happens psychologically, that we stop thinking or we stop acknowledging, we stop being aware that this is my perspective, it's my view, it's the lens with which I'm seeing things. Maybe it's my past experience, maybe it's my conditioning. We start believing and we become very certain that this is reality, this is what it is, this is the truth, and I know everything. So, we will be exploring five filters. The first one being the approval filter. Now, this is something we spoke about last time as well. The question that appears in the approval filter is, what will other people think? What will other people think? So this filter asks, will they approve of me? Or will they like me? Will this make them upset? Will I disappoint them? Now, how do we know if we are really passing everything through the approval filter? The signs that you could catch on to are there could be a difficulty saying no. You could feel excessive guilt. It could lead to people pleasing. And there could be fear of criticism. And there could be a need to constantly seek reassurance. So, again, the approval filter, what will other people think? This filter, it asks us or it demands, will other people approve of me? Will they like me? Will I upset them? Will I disappoint them? We can have trouble saying no. We could feel a lot of guilt. We could start engaging in people pleasing. We could start fearing criticism. And there could be a constant need for seeking reassurance from others. Now, at this point, maybe you could also think and reflect if there were any decisions in your life that were influenced by wanting to avoid disappointing someone. If you think any decision was influenced by you wanting to avoid either disappointing someone or also just because you wanted someone to maybe validate you or approve of you. And if we have if we think about spiritually, what's the difference between what approval asks of us is how do I stay accepted. However, if we bank on, say, our inner truth or our inner voice, that would perhaps say, how do I stay authentic? And and that's a big difference, in how this filter works, because it if we remove this filter, it brings us back to what's authentic to me, what's true for me, what's my reality, what do I want. Now, the second filter is the comparison filter. So, as it suggests, the question becomes, how do I measure up? So, when we pass things through this lens of the comparison filter, then we start looking at success basis what other people, where they are in their lives. Relationships become comparison, our appearance becomes comparison. Now, comparison, the problem, and it's a big one of comparison, is that it can steal joy from almost any experience. So yeah, maybe think about if you've ever achieved something and immediately compared it to someone else. Now we see that, we've heard stories and um, different kinds of flowers growing in a garden. Now, if there's a rose and a sunflower, if the rose spent all its life wishing it was taller, or the sunflower wished it smelled sweeter, um, when we think about it like that, it sounds almost absurd, but we tend to do this. We can be doing this constantly and not even realizing that we are using the comparison filter to look at our situations, our decisions, what brings us joy, what steals our joy. Now, mm, comparison can also thrive when we forget our unique path. And there's a line in the Bhagavad Gita that says, "It's better to live your own dharma imperfectly than someone else's perfectly. Better to live your own dharma imperfectly than someone else's perfectly." So, as we see, in the comparison filter, the question that we are constantly asking ourselves is, how do I measure up? whether it's success, it's our appearance, it's relationships. It's always relative to someone else. So then the task becomes, how can we bring focus to ourselves by aligning with our unique path? So when we start believing that this is my path to take or it's my journey, what happens is that we become so engaged with what we are trying to create that there is no longer um, subjectivity when it comes to other people. And there's no longer a need to compare ourselves, to measure ourselves with where someone else is, because we trust our journey, we trust what we are doing. The third one is the control filter. This is a common one. The question becomes, how do I make sure nothing goes wrong? How do I make sure nothing goes wrong? I can always get it right. I'm in control of the situation. I know exactly what's happening. So, any chances of anything going wrong, through my control, I try to avert them. What are the signs of using the control filter? We could be over planning, overthinking, difficulty trusting others, maybe even sometimes difficulty in delegating tasks, and a lot of anxiety around uncertainty. This is the control filter where we are trying to make sure nothing goes wrong. How do we exhibit it? We could overthink about everything. We could have difficulty trusting other people, delegating tasks, wanting to do everything ourselves, anxiety around uncertainty, over planning. So reflecting, is there anything in your life right now that you're really trying to control and that may actually not be controllable? Is there anything from your life right now that you think you're wanting to control, but in reality, it's uncontrollable? Because what control does is that it creates the illusion of safety. If I can do everything perfectly, if I know, if I can put everything, execute everything as per plan, then there's no risk of failure, there's no risk of things going wrong. But the truth is that life remains uncertain. And the more we fight uncertainty, the more exhausted we become. So, whenever it said, right, we hold on to sand tightly, we hold on to water tightly, it makes it spill. However, holding it gently is the only thing that can let it remain. So control is a big one. Control is something that we use in everyday life, through life situations, uh, while dealing with other people. And the entire aim of the control filter is, how do I make sure nothing goes wrong? But the truth is that it's an illusion, because in reality, nothing is certain. So at any point, there is a degree of uncertainty that we have to become eventually comfortable with. The more we fight it, the more tired, exhausted we become. The fourth filter is the safety filter. So, in this, we want to make sure that we are safe. So, the question becomes, what feels safest? Now, this filter is not always bad because in some ways, it protects us. However, what it can do is it can become limiting and hold us back. So, thinking about, have you ever known what you really wanted to do, but you chose the safer option instead? Taking a minute to just reflect if there was ever a situation where you knew that this is what I wanted, but you chose the safer option. Now, doing new things, walking towards growth, often can feel uncomfortable. And what we know, so what is safe, is familiar. Now, the brain can confuse familiar with safety, even when familiar is no longer healthy. So, while the safety filter does protect us, it can keep us in this loop of familiarity and and therefore inhibit our growth, or even sometimes keep us in situations that are no longer working for us. So it's really important then to become aware of when we are using this filter, and and not confuse familiarity with safety. The fifth and the last filter is the growth filter. This filter asks us, what will help me become who I want to become? So, in a way, this is the most mature filter. It asks us, what will I learn? How will I grow? What is this teaching me? Who am I becoming? What will help me become who I want to become? So, this pushes us towards learning, growth. It pushes us towards our goals, assess if something is teaching us, assess what it is creating in us, leading us to. Now, if say, we plant a seed, it could remain safe forever while it's under the soil, it's left there. There's no risk, there's no discomfort, there's no uncertainty, but also there's no tree then. There are no flowers, there are no fruit. So um, growth always involves some kind of transformation. It involves leaving something familiar behind and then using our capacity, our courage, our strength to, in some way or the other, do something new, think something new, and be okay with that discomfort. So we've seen five filters through which we could be running our life, and our our objective here today is to just be aware of the filters that we use that could come in play from time to time, and also being aware that if that's the case, then this is not reality. It is my subjective understanding of reality. So, again, not confusing the filter for reality. The first one that we saw was the approval filter, which centers around what will other people think. We want to be liked, we want to be approved, we don't want to upset, disappoint people. So we start thinking, we start using this filter to make decisions in a way that we don't disappoint others. The comparison filter is the second one, in which we are measuring ourselves, um, and we are seeing if we're up to the mark with others. So our success, our relationships, how we live, it becomes a comparison. And it can steal joy from our life. It can make us feel, smaller, no much how much we do, how much we have. Third one is the control filter, in which we're trying to make sure nothing ever goes wrong. Over planning, overthinking, anxiety about the future, anxiety about uncertainty. So it helps to know that control is an illusion of safety. Life, in its truth, is uncertain. The fourth was the safety filter, in which we assess what feels safe. It can protect us, but it can also inhibit us, it can limit us. And the way to get past this filter is to reassure ourselves that growth does feel uncomfortable, and what is familiar could seems safe, but it's no longer maybe either contributing to our growth or at times even keep us in situations which are not healthy for us. The last one being the growth filter. So the growth filter to become, pushes us towards becoming who we want to become. It's um, it's about learning, understanding. It's about our growth. It's about taking us ahead on the path we want to go on to. And it more or less always involves leaving something familiar behind. So now this after after becoming more aware of these, the crucial part is to understand which filter runs our life. Now, at some point, we could be using all of them. So it's not like either or. And it's not like, if I'm using at times the growth filter, I'm never using the control filter, or I'm never using the approval filter. However, when we look at life honestly, which filter shows up the most often? And that's something to think about. Maybe take a minute to reflect on it. That if we can take a very honest, objective assessment of our lives, which filter do we think is being used most often? And in that sense, none of these filters are completely bad because they play a role of some kind. So the problem is not really having these filters, but being run by them unconsciously. So yeah, assessing at this time, if you look at life, which filter seems to be running most often in your life? And we start being free when we realize that it is a filter, it's not necessarily reality. So now we'll get into a short practice where we'll look at a situation and try and understand if we are looking at it objectively or through one of the filters. So for that, I'd I'd invite you to sit comfortably wherever you are and gently closing your eyes, bringing your attention completely on yourself, pulling back any thoughts that could be directed outwards. If it helps, you can spend a few moments with your breath just so that the mind feels settled, relaxed, present. And bring to mind a decision you are currently facing. If there is one, bringing to mind a decision you could be currently facing. See it clearly as you can. And now asking yourself, we'll check ourselves for the different filters. So asking yourself, is it the approval filter speaking? Am I thinking about what will other people think? Is my focus directed towards what will people think? Is the comparison filter speaking, where the mind is perhaps bent towards what are others doing? Is the control filter speaking, where you could be very focused on what if something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, or perhaps is the safety filter speaking, where you could be focused on what feels familiar. Is the growth filter speaking, where you could be asking, what will help me become who I am meant to become? What will help me become who I am meant to become? Now imagine if you had to place all these five filters on a table and stepping back and observing. And if none of these voices, were loud or were standing out, what would your wisdom say? Allowing your wisdom to speak. If there was no fear, if there was no filter, what would you choose? If there was no fear, what would you choose? And you could also think about, which filter surprised you today. So, with that, coming back to the breath, coming back to the body, coming back to the space you're in, becoming aware of it. And maybe moving your body a bit and then opening your eyes. So, as a reflection, yeah, if you have any thoughts on which filter surprised you today, you can perhaps put them on the chat, or or you can just think about it yourself. But as a practice, going after in your daily life after the session, maybe whenever making a decision, you can pause and ask, which filter is speaking with me right now, which lens I am using to look at this situation right now. And even if there's no change to make, the the objective, as we said, is just to become aware um, of how we are looking at life. What we are looking at life through, which lens are we using. So we have an answer. Control filter is something that was surprising today, yeah. And we don't realize how much control we could be subconsciously, unconsciously wanting to exercise, on our actions, on life. And there's a question. Can you please let us know, after being aware of these filters, what's the solution to change foundation for each filter? How can this help you make authentic decisions? Yeah, and that's what. So the answer to this question, of course, because our ultimately we want to move out of these filters and move towards authenticity. So that's what tomorrow is all about, because tomorrow we'll go, beneath the filters and explore the deeper truth, which is about our values. So, what truly matters to us when nobody else is deciding for us, or when we are not using the filter of other people, or certainty to look at situations. So that's what we'll try and see, that how can we identify firstly our values, and then how can we cultivate them, how can we become more authentic using our values. So yeah, Vardhani, I think um, we'll be going through that in detail so that we can mm, move past our decision making with these filters. If there are any other questions or any thoughts, anything you'd like to share, you could do that now. Or else we'll be back tomorrow. As we said, we are exploring decision making in this module of Mighty Champions. And tomorrow we'll try and see if we can bring in value alignment so that we can be more authentic with ourselves in our lives. Thank you. Thanks for practicing with me today. Thanks for being here. And we are here live every day, so you can join wherever you are in the world. And you can also access our modules in details through the Mighty Champions website. So yeah, thank you. And we'll be we'll be back tomorrow. Have a good day, good evening, wherever you are. Bye.